I woke up with a song I didn't remember writing. The words were already spilling out of me before I was fully conscious. My hand fumbled for the pen I kept on the nightstand, half dead from overuse, missing its cap, and I scribbled blindly across a crumpled notebook page. The lines weren't mine. Not really. They poured through me too clean, too sharp, like they'd been etched somewhere long before I touched them. The apartment was dark, the single streetlight outside my window slanting across the floorboards in dull amber stripes. Pages covered every surface, scraps of unfinished lyrics, rejected verses, fragments that never quite fit together. My piano sat against the far wall, the wood chipped and scarred, one leg propped up by a stack of books to keep it from wobbling. The kettle in the kitchen bore rust stains I never managed to scrub out, though I rarely remembered to boil water anyway. The whole place smelled faintly of dust and old paper. By the time my hand stilled, I had 3 full verses. My heart was pounding. I read them back once, twice, and a thrill ran through me. They were good. Too good. It didn't feel like I had written them. I leaned back against the wall, notebook slack in my lap. A nervous laugh escaped me. Maybe I'm just a genius in my sleep, I muttered, though even I didn't buy it. Sleep didn't come back easily. My chest hummed with restless energy, as if I'd stolen something I wasn't supposed to have. When morning dragged itself into my room, pale and reluctant, I was already pacing, rehearsing excuses I might give if someone asked how I'd written this so fast. At the studio, I handed the pages over to Mina, a young singer whose career was one lucky break away from either taking off or crashing. She perched on a stool, scanned the lines, and her eyes widened. "Noah," she whispered. This is brilliant. You're a genius." I winced, heat crawling up my neck. "It's fine." "No, it's not fine. It's the best thing you've given me." "God, these words, where did you pull this from?" I gave a weak shrug. "Dreams, maybe." It wasn't a lie, not exactly. She was too swept up to notice my discomfort. She clutched the paper to her chest like it was treasure. "This is it. This is the one. People are going to know your name." Her enthusiasm should have lifted me. Instead, I felt like I was standing in the wrong spotlight, basking in praise meant for someone else. For something else. The rest of the day passed in a haze of rehearsals and coffee I couldn't taste. My thoughts kept circling back to the words in that notebook, the way they had slipped into me without asking. Inspiration had always been a grind before. Hours bent over keys, endless drafts that never landed right. But this had been too easy. That night, back in my apartment, I caught myself staring at the piano like it might explain itself. The room was heavy with silence, but it wasn't empty. I felt it. Some presence just out of sight, brushing along the edges of my thoughts. I shook my head. "Get it together, Noah. You're tired. That's all." I forced myself toward the bathroom, flipping on the dim, flickering light above the mirror. My reflection looked worse than usual, shadows under my eyes, hair sticking out. In every direction. The slump of someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. I splashed water on my face, leaned closer to the mirror. That's when I saw it. For a fraction of a second, over my shoulder, there was someone else. Not clear, not solid, just a silhouette, tall and sharp-edged, with the faint curve of a smile carved into the blur. I blinked, and the mirror showed only me. But the chill crawling up my spine didn't fade. The studio was nearly empty by the time I found myself alone at the piano. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, one of them flickering like it couldn't decide whether to live or die. Papers littered the floor, my drafts, Mina's notes, someone's abandoned coffee cup, and the only sound left was the low hum of the recording equipment in standby. I should have gone home. I was exhausted, my eyelids heavy, my body running on fumes. But my hands hovered above the keys, like they were waiting for someone else to start. And then, I heard it. A whisper. Not words exactly, more like the outline of words. A suggestion. The shape of lyrics forming at the back of my skull. My breath caught. Not again. The whisper slid down into my chest, tugging at me like a thread pulling fabric tight. I pressed a key, C minor. And another one followed, not by my choice, but as if my hand had been nudged. A chord formed, resonant and haunting. My skin prickled. I pulled my hands back, heart hammering. Nope, not doing this. But the piano thrummed again. This time, I hadn't even touched it. I stumbled to my feet. My first thought, faulty wiring. My second, I'm losing my mind. Neither was comforting. Then the air shifted. The shadows stretched across the walls as if they were breathing. pulling long and sharp. Out of that darkness, a figure stepped forward. No sound of footsteps, just the faint ripple of smoke curling into form. Tall. Too tall. His face was all edges and elegance, sharp cheekbones, a mouth that carried an amused tilt even at rest. His eyes gleamed silver, alive with something that wasn't human light. His clothes weren't quite clothes. More like the suggestion of them, dark fabric that moved like mist, constantly reshaping. "Hello, Noah," he said, voice smooth as a bow drawn across strings. I froze. Nope, definitely hallucinating. This is what happens when you live on instant noodles and caffeine for a week straight. He tilted his head, smirk deepening. If I were a hallucination, would I answer back? I rubbed at my eyes, willing him away. He stayed. Worse, he leaned casually against the piano like he'd been invited. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded. "Aurel," he said simply, rolling the syllables as if tasting them. "Demon, muse. Call me what you like." My laugh came out shaky. "Demon. Right, sure. And I'm Mozart reincarnated?" He arched a brow. "You think Mozart worked alone?" That shut me up for a beat. "So, what, you're here to tell me you've been, feeding me lyrics in my sleep?" "Exactly," Aurel said. "I slip words into your mind, arrange them into something you can hold. In return, I take a little something from you, your pain, your doubt. It's a fair trade." I stared. "That's not a trade. That's theft." "Semantics." He tapped the piano lid lightly. "You were already drowning in pain. At least I make something beautiful out of it." My hands clenched into fists. "Why me?" Aurel's smile turned sly. "Because you were easy. Hungry enough for recognition, desperate enough for meaning. You practically left the door open. I wanted to be furious. Instead, I laughed. Half hysteria, half disbelief. Fantastic. I've been ghostwritten by an actual ghost. Well, a musical bedsheet. That's what you look like, by the way." His silver eyes flashed. "Bedsheet?" "A smoky one. Like somebody's laundry came alive." Aurel chuckled low in his throat. "You're sharp-tongued for someone terrified out of his mind." "I'm not terrified." My voice cracked. "Okay, maybe a little. But this is insane. I can't just accept this." "You already have," he said softly. "Every time you woke with perfect verses on your lips. Every time you let the music carry you instead of questioning where it came from. You accepted me." My chest tightened. The truth was right there, undeniable. Every lyric I'd loved, every line that had shocked me with its perfection, it hadn't been mine. It had been him. I sat heavily on the bench, staring at the keys. "So what's the catch? You keep feeding me songs until what? I burn out? You eat me alive?" Aurel's expression shifted, subtle but startling. A flicker of something gentler beneath the silver gaze. "The catch is simple. I stay. I give. I take. You create brilliance. And the world applauds you for it." My laugh was bitter. "And all I have to do is let a demon crash in my head rent-free. Think of me as a collaborator." "Yeah, well, collaborators usually don't snack on my emotions." He leaned closer, enough that I caught the faint scent of smoke and something sharp, like ozone before a storm. "You'll find I'm very inspiring." The chord he'd struck earlier still rang faintly in the air, though my rational brain knew that was impossible. Against my will, my fingers brushed the keys again. Another phrase came, whole and intoxicating. The music swelled, bigger than me, bigger than the room, and for a terrifying, exhilarating moment I let it. It was genius. And it wasn't mine. Harper's office always smelled like leather and expensive whiskey. The kind of place designed to make you feel small, even if you walked in with a hit single. He sat behind his massive desk, fingers tapping against a contract folder like it was a ticking clock. "Noah," he said smoothly, "you've been on fire lately. Every artist I've shown your lyrics to wants more. It's time you stop being a ghostwriter in the shadows. Sign this, and you'll have steady work, bigger names, royalties, real money." The words should have lit me up. They didn't. I stared at the contract, my pulse dragging like a broken metronome. All I could think was, these songs aren't mine. Aurel, of course, lounged against the wall where only I could see him, looking insufferably pleased with himself. His smoky coat curled around him like it had its own mind. "Take it," he murmured, voice low, curling directly into my head. "Isn't this what you wanted? Recognition, applause? You and I did this together. I'm your CO writer." I clenched my jaw, ignoring him. Harper leaned forward, misreading my hesitation. You deserve this, kid. Don't overthink it. Just sign, deserve. The word cut deep. I wanted to deserve it. But every perfect lyric, every haunting chorus, it wasn't my brilliance. It was his. My pen hovered, then dropped. I'll think about it. Harper's smile faltered. Think? Noah, this is the kind of chance that doesn't wait around. I know. My voice sounded thin even to me. I just need time. He sighed, already looking past me, dismissing me like an indecisive child. Don't take too long. Talent burns out faster than you think. By the time I left, the contract folder felt like it was still stapled to my chest. Back at my apartment, I slammed the door harder than necessary. You just had to show up there, didn't you? Aurel stretched like a cat, lounging against the arm of my couch with infuriating ease. I didn't say a word Harper could hear. You're welcome. You fed him those words through me. You're the reason he thinks I'm worth signing. And? His silver eyes glinted with mischief. Isn't it convenient having a demon on your resume? I dropped into the chair by the piano, burying my head in my hands. It's not mine. None of this is mine. I can't sign a contract built on a lie. Aurel's laugh was low, musical. Lie? You bleed for these songs. I just nudged the knife. That's sick. That's art. He slid onto the bench beside me before I could protest. His presence too close, too solid. Besides, you don't hate the music. Admit it. You love what we make together. My fingers hovered above the keys. The silence between us stretched taut. Then he pressed one note. Just one. It reverberated through the room, trembling in my ribs. Against my better judgment, I answered with another. He smirked, coaxing the melody forward. Aurel led with confidence, his touch deliberate, elegant. I stumbled at first, then caught his rhythm, weaving my chords into his. We played in tandem, the room filling with sound bigger than either of us. The music built and broke, fragile then furious, intimate in a way that scared me more than the word demon ever could. At some point our shoulders brushed. Our hands moved dangerously close across the keys, his long fingers grazing mine as if by accident. A spark shot through me, hot and unwelcome. I swallowed hard in my throat. The melody slowed, softer now, a thread pulling us tighter. When our hands finally collided, neither of us pulled away immediately. I looked up and he was already watching me. Too close, eyes bright like liquid. Silver, mouth curved with something that wasn't just amusement this time. The air thickened. The song faltered into silence. And for a breathless second, we leaned in. I jerked back like I'd been burned, the bench screeching as I shoved it away. My chest heaved. No, whatever this is, it's wrong. Aurel chuckled softly, but there was a flicker in his expression, something less smug, more raw. Wrong, he echoed. Yet you keep playing with me. I couldn't answer. I just sat there, hands trembling, caught between the guilt of stolen genius and the dangerous pull of the one who'd given it to me. The first time I heard the song on the radio, I thought I was hallucinating again. The lyrics were mine, every aching word, every razor-edged chorus. Except it wasn't my voice. It wasn't Mina's either. Some other singer crooned into the night, hitting my lines like they'd always belonged to him. I froze in the studio hallway, coffee halfway to my mouth. That's my song, I whispered. Across the room, Harper leaned against the mixing board, arms folded, wearing that smug grin that made me want to break things. Correction. That's our song, Noah. And now it's a hit. The cup slipped from my hand, splattering lukewarm liquid across the tile. My chest burned like I'd swallowed fire. You gave it away, without telling me? Relax. He waved a dismissive hand. The deal went through. You'll get your cut, more exposure, more clients, it's good for you. No, I snapped, louder than I'd meant to. It's theft. Harper's smile didn't budge. It's business. I stormed out before I could throw something at his perfect leather chair. The night air slapped me across the face as I shoved through the studio doors. Neon lights buzzed overhead, painting the street in tired pinks and blues. My head felt like it was splitting down the middle, the song still ringing in my ears, now dirtied by another man's voice. You should have seen your face, Aurel drawled, falling into step beside me as if he'd been waiting all along. His form shimmered faintly in the glow of the streetlights, too sharp to be a shadow, too unreal to be flesh. Like a child robbed of candy. I shot him a glare. Don't start. Oh, I'm not mocking, he said with a smile that promised the opposite. I'm offering solutions. I shoved my hands into my pockets, teeth gritted. You mean, revenge? Such a heavy word, he murmured, silver eyes flashing. I could make it so Harper never writes, never steals, never breathes music again. One little adjustment. His fingers curled as though snapping invisible strings. He'd wither. Forget what rhythm even feels like. Justice, quick and clean. The image hit me so hard I had to stop walking. Aurel's voice was velvet, coaxing, tempting. And God, part of me wanted it. But another part, the stubborn part still clinging to whatever scraps of humanity I had left, recoiled. No. Aurel blinked slowly, as if tasting the word. No? I swallowed hard, my throat dry. If I let you do that, then I'm no better than him. Worse. I'd rather he takes everything than lose myself. For a second his smirk faltered. He tilted his head, studying me as though I were something alien. You're strange, he said finally. Most humans would have said yes. I laughed bitterly. Then maybe I'm not most humans. Later, I found myself in a bar down the street, staring into a glass of whiskey I couldn't afford but ordered anyway. The chatter of strangers blurred around me, too loud, too close. Every time the radio in the corner cycled back to that song, my stomach twisted tighter. Aurel sat across from me in the booth, untouchable as smoke. He didn't drink, didn't fidget, didn't belong. Yet somehow, he was the only thing tethering me to the seat. You're furious, he said, eyes glinting. No kidding. Helplessness tastes worse than rage, he mused, tapping the table with one long finger. You'd let yourself rot in it rather than strike back? I don't want your kind of power, I muttered. He leaned closer, his smile less sharp now, almost curious. And yet, you keep me near. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, despite every fiber of my being screaming to run, I did keep him near. We ended up on the roof of my apartment building that night, the city, sprawled out beneath us in flickering lights and restless traffic. The air smelled of rain that never came. I sat with my knees drawn up, notebook unopened at my side. Aurel stood at the ledge, looking like he belonged to the skyline more than to me. His outline blurred in the wind, half real, half smoke. For once, he didn't speak. The silence stretched, heavy but not suffocating. The world below buzzed with life, but up here, it was just us. My anger dulled into something quieter, a bone-deep exhaustion. I glanced at him. He didn't smirk. He didn't prod. Just watched the city like he was memorizing it. Against my will I felt steadier, not healed, not safe, but not entirely alone. And that was something. Eli's apartment looked like a magazine spread for young professional success. Polished hardwood floors, spotless countertops, plants that were somehow still alive. Even the couch cushions looked smug. I stood awkwardly in the doorway, already itching to leave. Nice place, I muttered. My own apartment, with its cracked paint and lopsided piano, felt like it belonged on another planet. Eli smirked, leaning against the kitchen island. Yeah, well, some of us learned how to handle life. I bristled, but didn't take the bait. I was here because he'd called, urgent and cryptic, insisting we talk. Now I wasn't sure why I'd agreed. He didn't waste time. You've been writing again. Big stuff. I hear it everywhere. I shifted uneasily. Sort of. His eyes narrowed. Don't play dumb with me, Noah. Those songs, you didn't come up with all of that on your own. My stomach dropped. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Eli snapped, I was always there, every late night session, every brainstorm. I gave you lines, ideas, half those lyrics. Mine? That's not, I started, but the words stuck. Because maybe, once or twice, he had tossed in a phrase, a chord suggestion. Little things I'd brushed off, now, twisted through his voice, they sounded bigger. Damning. I've supported you for years, Eli went on, voice rising. Fed you, covered your rent when you couldn't. And now you finally hit something big and what, you cut me out? Anger flared, quick and ugly. You didn't write those songs, Eli. You didn't sit up all night tearing yourself apart for a verse that didn't land. You didn't bleed for them. Bleed? He laughed harshly. You're pathetic. You can't even admit you'd be nothing without me. I froze. Because part of me believed him, or wanted to. From the corner, Aurel's voice slithered through the air, amused. Oh, he's delightful. Can we keep him around? He feeds you self-doubt like a feast. Shut up, I muttered, though I wasn't sure if I meant Eli or Aurel. Maybe both. Eli's brow furrowed. What? Nothing, I said quickly. Just, forget it. But I couldn't forget it. His accusations sank claws deep. Maybe he was right. Maybe my whole career was a Frankenstein patchwork, bits of Eli's input, chunks of Aurel's whispers. Where was I in it? My chest tightened. I hated how small I felt in my brother's spotless, successful apartment. Eli saw the hesitation flicker in my eyes and pressed harder. Admit it, you owe me. If you don't give me credit, I'll take it anyway. People need to know the truth. The truth. The word made me sick. What truth was there left to claim? I swallowed hard. Get out of my songs, Eli. My voice shook. They're all I have. For once, silence fell. Eli's jaw worked, but he didn't fire back. He just turned away, muttering something I couldn't catch. I left before the walls closed in. Back on the street, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. The city moved around me in sharp, disjointed pieces, neon lights, car horns, the sour smell of rain on pavement. I pressed my palms into my eyes, but the sting in my chest wouldn't fade. You're fragile tonight, Aurel said quietly, his form flickering to life beside me. His usual smirk was muted, silver eyes softer. Your brother makes a crueler cut than any thief. Stop feeding on this, I snapped. Isn't it enough already? He tilted his head, studying me. And for the first time since I'd met him, his expression faltered, something like shame flickering across his face. I didn't mean to, he said softly. It's just automatic. You burn, and I drink it in. He paused, gaze steady. But I don't want to hurt you. Not anymore. The words hit harder than Eli's accusations. I turned toward him, caught off guard. Then why stay? Aurel hesitated, smoke curling at the edges of his form like he was unraveling. Then, in a voice low enough to almost be lost in the traffic hum, he said, I want to be here. Not just for the music. The city noise swallowed the silence between us, but the meaning clung, impossible to ignore. The theater smelled of rot and dust, the kind of place time had abandoned. Torn velvet curtains hung limp on either side of the stage, and the wooden floor groaned beneath every step. I didn't know why Aurel had brought me here. Only that he'd insisted, almost pleaded, with an urgency I hadn't heard from him before. This was once a temple of sound, he said, his voice echoing off the cracked walls. His outline shimmered faintly in the gloom, smoke threading through the air. I gave a man his masterpiece here. I looked around at the decay. The only music left was the scurrying of rats. Doesn't look like it ended well. Aurel's silver eyes flickered. It rarely does. Before I could press him, the air thickened. A cold draft slithered across my skin, carrying the smell of iron and ash. From the wings of the stage another figure emerged, sharper, darker, more solid than Aurel. His presence filled the room like a blade pressed to my throat. Well, the stranger drawled, his voice low and cutting, if it isn't my wayward partner. Aurel stiffened. Lucien, the name curdled in my stomach. The newcomer's gaze shifted to me, and I felt pinned, dissected. His eyes glowed a deeper shade than Aurel's, obsidian shot with fire. So, this is your new toy? Lucien asked, smiling without warmth. You always did love broken ones. Easy to string along. I bristled. I'm not quiet, human, Lucien snapped. And the words struck like a slap. He turned back to Aurel. How many now? You feed, you flatter, you drain them until they're hollow. Then you move on, same as ever. The floor seemed to tilt under me. What is he talking about? Aurel's expression tightened, but he didn't answer. Lucien's grin widened. He didn't tell you? Of course not, he never does. Every brilliant lyric he's given you, he's given before. To others. And when they were spent, he left them to rot, alone, forgotten, used. My chest constricted. I looked at Aurel, desperate for denial, for anything. He only lowered his gaze. You've done this before? My voice cracked. Aurel reached for me. Noah, listen. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. So I'm just another host? Another project to milk dry before you move on? His face flickered with panic. It's not like that. Not with you. Lucien laughed, the sound sharp as glass. They all said that, didn't they? Every single one. Until you found the next spark and left. Stop, Aurel snapped, smoke curling violently around him. But his voice shook. I shoved his hand away when he tried again. Don't touch me, Noah. You've been using me. Every word, every melody. I thought it was ours, but it was just your game, wasn't it? The silence that followed was answer enough. Something inside me fractured. The betrayal cut deeper than Harper's theft, deeper than Eli's accusations. This wasn't just my work, it was me, my trust. And he'd broken it. I turned on my heel, the boards groaning beneath me as I headed for the exit. My pulse thundered in my ears. Behind me, Aurel's voice cracked, desperate. "Noah, please, I didn't mean for this. Stay away from me." The door slammed shut behind me, and the night air hit like ice water. On the stage, Aurel remained, the smoke of his form trembling, unstable. Lucien lingered at the edge, smiling with cruel satisfaction. "See?" Lucien said softly. "You can't help yourself, you'll always lose them." But for the first time in centuries, Aurel didn't answer with arrogance or laughter. He stood in the ruins of an old stage, heart hammering in a body that shouldn't have one, and felt the unfamiliar chill of fear. Not fear of Lucien. Fear of losing Noah. The apartment felt colder than usual. Maybe it was just me. The radiator clanked but never delivered heat. The windows leaked drafts no matter how many towels I stuffed along the sill. Silence pressed in, heavy and accusing. I sat at my desk, pen poised above a blank sheet. Hours passed. Nothing. Every time I tried to start, the words turned to dust. Lines that used to flow like water now came out stiff, lifeless. I crossed them out until the page was scarred with angry black lines, then crumpled it and threw it aside. Another page. Another failure. The wastebasket overflowed, spilling drafts across the floor like a battlefield of dead attempts. "This is me," I muttered to the empty room, throat raw. "This is what I am without him." I hated myself for saying it. Hated the truth in it. The tears came hot, unexpected. I pressed my palms against my eyes, but they only burned more. Every lyric I'd been proud of, every chorus that had felt transcendent, it all carried his fingerprints. Without Aurel, I was just ordinary. The thought clawed at me. Was I ever anything but his vessel? I stumbled to the piano, half in anger, half in desperation. My fingers crashed against the keys, forcing sound into the air. Notes tangled, dissonant, wrong. I tried to shape them into something, anything, but they fell apart under my hands, hollow echoes of what had once been. I slammed the lid down, the bang ringing in the empty apartment. Damn it. My voice cracked, breaking into a sob. I sank to the floor, leaning against the piano like it could anchor me. The silence after the outburst was worse. It told me everything I didn't want to hear. I closed my eyes, and memory filled the void. The nights when we played together, his hands leading, mine chasing. The way melody seemed to bloom between us, alive and breathing. The thrill of his voice close to my ear, teasing, coaxing. And sometimes, just sometimes, the way his smirk faltered, replaced by something gentler. Real. Those moments haunted me more than the betrayal. Because I wanted to believe them. Wanted to believe he hadn't been lying every second. But hadn't Lucien been right? Hadn't Aurel drained countless others before me? I pressed my forehead to my knees, shaking. I didn't know what to believe anymore. The air shifted. I didn't need to open my eyes to know. "Go away," I whispered. "No," came the reply, low and steady. His voice. I looked up despite myself. Aurel stood in the corner, smoke curling around him, silver eyes dimmer than I'd ever seen. He looked less certain, almost fragile. "You shouldn't be here," I said hoarsely. "Yet here I am." He moved closer, careful, like I might shatter if he came too fast. I wanted to scream at him, shove him back into the shadows. But my body betrayed me. Staying still, listening. "You lied to me," I said, the words trembling out. "You used me." He flinched. Just barely. "I did what I've always done." His voice caught on the admission. "But with you, it isn't the same." I shook my head. "You expect me to believe that? After everything?" "I don't expect you to believe anything." He crouched beside me, his form solidifying in the dim light. For once he wasn't smirking, wasn't mocking. "I just need you to hear this." I swallowed, the silence stretching. "Then say it." He held my gaze, smoke trembling around the edges of his form. His voice softened, almost breaking. "I will stay," he said, "even if you never write another line, even if you never play again. I'll stay, for you." The words hung in the air, fragile and impossible. My chest ached, torn between anger and something far more dangerous. Hope. For the first time, I couldn't tell which terrified me more. The studio was empty, its silence almost reverent. The overhead lights were off, only the small lamp on the piano cast a warm pool of glow, softening the edges of the room. Dust floated in the beam like suspended notes waiting to be written. I sat at the piano bench, notebook closed and shoved aside. For once, I didn't want to start with words. I wanted sound. Raw, unpolished, mine. Aurel appeared quietly, as if the shadows had simply rearranged themselves into his shape. He didn't say anything. He just sat beside me, close enough that his presence filled the air. For once he didn't press, didn't coax. When his hand slipped into mine, it wasn't a guide, it was just a hold. Solid. Steady. I don't know if I can do this, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. You can, he said simply. And this time, it will be yours. I closed my eyes, drew in a shaky breath, and pressed a single key. The sound was soft, uncertain. Another followed. Then another, stumbling at first, but slowly forming a fragile thread. No whispers pushed me forward. No unseen hand nudged the melody. It was clumsy, but it was real. Aurel's thumb brushed over my knuckles, grounding me. He didn't interfere, though I felt his gaze, steady and uncharacteristically gentle. I let myself fall into the rhythm, not caring if it was imperfect. The music spilled from somewhere deeper than thought, a place I hadn't touched in too long. The notes found each other, tentative at first, then stronger, weaving into a melody that belonged to no one but me. When I faltered, his grip tightened, not pushing, just reminding me he was there. The lamp buzzed faintly, its glow catching in the silver of his eyes. For once they weren't sharp or mocking. They reflected me, mirrored the fragile certainty growing under my skin. I kept playing. Slowly, the music opened up, unfurling like something that had been caged too long. It rose, soft and aching, carrying pieces of me I thought I'd lost. At some point, Aurel's free hand drifted to the keys, answering my melody with a counterpoint. Not leading, not overtaking, just meeting me halfway. Our notes twined together, hesitant at first, then harmonizing. My chest tightened, but not with despair this time. With something terrifyingly close to joy. The music swelled, bigger than us, yet rooted in the small space between our hands. His fingers brushed mine when we shared keys, sparking heat that made the air crackle. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. When the song slowed, tapering into something delicate and intimate, our hands settled together on the same chord. I turned my head, and he was already watching me. There was no smirk, no armor of arrogance. Just him, raw and unguarded. The silence after the last note was louder than applause. I didn't know who moved first. Maybe both of us. But when our lips met, it felt less like collision, and more like resolution. The inevitable ending to a melody we'd been circling for too long. The kiss was soft, hesitant at first, then deepening as if we'd both finally stopped pretending. His hand rose to my cheek, cool and steady, while mine clutched the fabric of his smoke-like coat as if it could anchor me. The city outside went on, uncaring, but in that studio, under that single lamp, the world was only music and breath and him. When we finally pulled apart, the silence stretched again. This time it wasn't empty. I let out a shaky laugh, my forehead still against his. Guess we wrote our first real song. Aurel's lips curved into the faintest smile, his voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. Our song. And for the first time, the word didn't sound like a trick. The lights were blinding. For a moment I stood frozen at the edge of the stage, my heart pounding louder than the applause waiting to erupt. Beyond the glare of the spotlight stretched a sea of faces, indistinct, shifting, alive. My throat tightened. They were here for me. Not for Harper's chosen pop star. Not for Eli's imagined co-writing credit. Not for borrowed lines whispered into my head. For me. For the songs I had finally claimed as mine. I stepped forward, the microphone cool beneath my fingers. The noise in the hall swelled, then softened into expectant silence. My stomach flipped. But when I pressed the first chord on the piano, the world steadied. The melody filled the space, rich and clear, carrying with it every sleepless night. Every cracked notebook page, every scar I'd tried to bury in someone else's voice. Now it was mine, bare and unpolished and whole. As I sang, something in me unclenched. The lyrics didn't feel borrowed anymore. They were carved from my own chest, painful and beautiful, bleeding but alive. When the chorus hit, the crowd roared back, voices rising with mine. For the first time, I didn't feel like an imposter hiding behind someone else's brilliance. I felt true. Somewhere in the shadows near the back, Harper scowled, his empire crumbling under the weight of contracts and stolen credits exposed. Eli wasn't beside him. My brother had tried to claim my songs, but the evidence hadn't held. When the lies unraveled, so did his grip on me. They were out, both of them. And I wasn't. Halfway through the set, my chest ached with the weight of what had been lost and what had been found. I thought of the old theater, of Lucian's sneer, of the dozens of musicians before me who'd been drained and discarded. But when I glanced toward the wings, Lucian was nowhere to be seen. He was gone. And I knew why. Aurel had chosen. By the final song my hands shook, but not from fear, from exhilaration. The melody I struck was new, born only days ago in the quiet glow of the studio lamp. Our song. The audience fell utterly silent as the first notes drifted out. It was fragile, intimate, a thread pulling us together. I poured everything into it, grief, anger, longing, hope. Every jagged edge of me smoothed into the music. When the last chord lingered, the hall erupted. The applause thundered like a storm, waves of sound crashing over me. I stood there, breathless, chest heaving, staring out into the blur of faces. And for once, I didn't feel small. I felt infinite. Out of the corner of my eye I caught him. Aurel, half shadow, half man, leaning against the balcony rail where the light didn't quite reach. His silver eyes caught the glow, not sharp this time but warm, his smile subtle, almost proud. He didn't move forward. He didn't need to. Because I understood. He wasn't staying for the music anymore. He was staying for me. The curtain call blurred. Flowers were thrust into my hands. Reporters shouted questions. Fans pressed forward with outstretched arms. I smiled until my cheeks ached, but inside, a steadier rhythm beat. One that belonged to no crowd, no contract, no demon's bargain. Later, alone in the dim dressing room, I sat before the mirror. My reflection looked different. Older somehow, steadier. I didn't see the boy who had woken up with stolen lyrics on his lips. I saw the man who had finally written his own. The door creaked open without a sound, and Aurel slipped inside. The air shifted, faintly charged, but not oppressive. "You were brilliant," he said softly. I laughed, shaking my head. "I thought you weren't the type for compliments." His smirk returned, faint but real. "Maybe I'm learning." For a long moment, we just looked at each other. The roar of the crowd still echoed faintly through the walls, but it didn't matter. The real victory wasn't out there. It was here. With him. As I stood on that stage in memory, the final words formed in me, clear as music. For the first time, the song was mine, and so was he.